Hello, everybody. Last time I introduced about on the hybrid cloud, what sort of things need to be aware of um, when applying the WARE architect frameworks. Now, today I'm going to spend some time try to look at the real scenarios under the hybrid cloud architecture designs or the migrations. What sort of things we need to be considered. So first of all, I'm going to point out some of the key points during the hybrid cloud design and migrations. First of all, the hybrid cloud, federal single sign-on and user access and controls. Now, Amazon have the IAM, which is going to do the user authentication and authorization accountings. That is sort of things which has happened in the cloud side. But also, the customer premises, they may have existing federal single sign-on solution already, which is using for the enterprise user authentication and authorizations. So those two different components or service stack, they need to get connected. That is reason why the federal single sign-on need to cross over between the cloud and customer existing premises. So that's number one. Number two, which is for the domain control and authentications. Well, if we are going to migrate the data, or if we're going to do the file sharings from the existing premises to the cloud, we need to have domain controls, the two ways, or called the forest trustness, going to be set up between the premises and AWS cloud. Why I say it's two-way? Because Amazon cloud domain control, they need to trust the existing premises domain controls, and existing premises domain control also need to trust the Amazon cloud domain controls. And Amazon cloud domain control and the premises domain control, they going through the two-way forest, they can exchange the trustness to each other. So this is scenario one. Scenario two, we can use what they call the AD connectors to connect from Amazon AWS domain control towards existing premises domain controls for the AD user authentications. So that's the second part we are going to look at. The third, which is for the DNS forwardings. Now, we know under the Amazon, we have the R53 as a DNS product, which can do the DNS query and forwardings. They're also supporting 4 different global server load balancing functions, like active, wait to run root, wait to run root, and geographics. But also, the premises data center or premises user hand office they already have existing DNS set up, which is doing the DNS query forwardings. So they need to be configured for the two-way, which is going to forward the DNS query from the premise side to the AWS R53, and also from AWS 53, they can forward the DNS query towards the premises. So this is number 3. Number 4 is regarding the network connectivities. Well, as I say, you know, uh, there's federal single sign-on between the premises to the Amazon, domain control between the premise to the Amazon, the DNS between the premises to Amazon. All those things they need to build up on top of the network connectivities. So there's different ways to connect between the premises to the Amazon cloud. Depends on the requirement of the business in terms of performance, latency, jitter, and security. We can have direct connect, which is as a preferred way to connect premises and cloud. Obviously, direct connect we are going to using the direct connect gateway and transact gateways. Second, which we can using VPN, side-to-side VPN. A side-to-side VPN which is going to encrypt the traffic and going to connect premises and the Amazon cloud. Usually, side-to-side VPN will use as a backup scenarios for the connectivity, and direct connect will be the primary scenarios for the connectivities. The third, we can also have a VPC pairings, which is set up the pair between the premises and Amazon cloud. Through the VPC pairings, we can do the VLAN extensions, so we can have the premises which can have different segmentations, and they can have through the different VLANs and through the protocol called 8021Q, they can send out and encapsulate those different segment traffic goes through a different VLAN, and those different VLAN through different VPC pairing that can go through the different VPCs. And again, the VPC, because due to the nature of the VPC, we can have public, private, and transit. So the VPC pairing type can also have public, private, and transit. Number 5, the hybrid security control. Obviously, the existing premise data centers and side they have, layers of security such as the firewall, IPS, VPN, control, SSL terminator, whatever, IPsec gateways. But also Amazon have the Amazon VPC security control, which is security called the NECOS or security group, which is quite common to protect the VPC. But also we can have security VPC, which is hosting the virtual security appliance, which is such as the virtual firewall or virtual IPS, which is do all the security check for those incoming and inbound and outbound traffic. So how are we going to have a hybrid security controls for those traffic between customer premises towards the AWS cloud, but also from AWS cloud towards the premises. So we need to make sure those data not going to be the data are going to be secured not just on the transit, but also going to make sure the data are going to be secured on the rest. Which means the data, probably we need to, if particularly this is regulated customers such as the finance, banking, and institution investors and wealth management, or maybe the health care providers, which is going to have the HIPAA, or maybe the e-payment, which is going to PCI DSS, or regardless, those data are going to be encrypted on those, maybe on those server storage, which is on those endpoint devices, but also when they transit through the VPC all the way towards the AWS, they also probably need to be encrypted. The The next one, which is going to be talking about the data and server migrations, or the data and server. So we're going to have, a lot of the servers which is sitting in the premises, and we probably have a bunch of server. We're going to have, like, let's say, database server, Oracle database server, the DataGuard, or maybe the Rack server, or maybe have, the Microsoft SQL servers clusters, which is going to use storage as to host those the data. They may have the existing, the sense which connect those two different components and using block storages. Or maybe we have some file sharing server, which is, let's say, the Microsoft, SMB protocol. They can using the Microsoft file sharing services, or under Linux or Unix file system, which is going to have like NFS, and we can probably using the NFS or CIFS or NFS file system to provide the file sharing services. Now, we know if we're going to consider to migrate the data crossover to the cloud, obviously those data need to be secure, connected, server need to be authenticated, and the data also need, when they crossover, replicated, and then the server target need to be switch over from the existing premises towards the cloud. So there's a lot of different scenarios we need to consider. Number 7, which is for the hybrid BCP replications. So DR and the BCP strategy or scenario, this is one of the things which is we're always going to encounter when we talk about the cloud, because the cloud, it's one of the ways to come up with cost-effective scenarios to not just expand the workload capacities as a service, but also can provide high resilience and high availabilities for the existing premises workload. So how those workload environment, how those data can be synchronized, and just in the case when the premises production had a problem, the cloud can take it over and switch over, or the existing cloud can work with the existing premises and build up a more resilient to fulfill a better, the high capacity of demanding of the business. So this is another scenario we're going to be looking at. Number 8, which is we're going to talk about system provision and configurations under the cloud environment. Number 9, we're going to looking at the hybrid system monitoring, log analysis, and event alarmings for those hybrid environment. So we are going to move to the details one after another.